2 Corinthians 3, 3-18. Clearly you are an epistle of Christ, ministered by us, written not with ink, but by the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of the flesh, that is, of the heart. And we have such trust through Christ toward God, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think of anything as being from ourselves, but our sufficiency is from God, who also made us sufficient as ministers of the new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. But of the ministry of death, written and engraved on stones, was glorious, so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the face of Moses because of the glory of his countenance, which glory was passing away. How will the ministry of the Spirit not be more glorious? For if the ministry of condemnation had glory, the ministry of righteousness exceeds much more in glory. For even what was made glorious had no glory in this respect, because of the glory that excels. For if what is passing away was glorious, what remains is much more glorious. Therefore, since we have such hope, we use great boldness of speech. Unlike Moses, who put a veil over his face, so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the end of what was passing away, but their minds were blinded. For until that day the same veil remains unlifted in the reading of the Old Testament, because the veil is taken away in Christ. But even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. Paul here says that the letter kills and is passing away. So many grab onto this phrase and conclude that the law is abolished. The letter Moses administered was glorious, but because it was designed to show us our sin, it only led to death and condemnation to those who sin. All have sinned. See Romans 3:23. The new covenant is more glorious because it was administered by the Spirit in our hearts. The Spirit is given to us so that we may walk in the same covenant that was given to Moses from the inside out, rather than from the outside in. See Ezekiel 36:26-27. From a willful heart and not from external influences. See Isaiah 29:13. This is why Paul also says in verse 5 and 6, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think of anything as being from ourselves, but our sufficiency is from God, who also made us sufficient as ministers of the new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. Even Moses alludes to the fact that the law was spiritual and could not be understood in the flesh. In Deuteronomy 29:2-4, he says, Now Moses called all Israel and said to them, You have seen all that the Lord did before your eyes in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his servants, and to all his land, the great trials which your eyes have seen, the signs and these great wonders. Yet the Lord has not given you a heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear, to this very day. Moses tells the multitudes that had personally witnessed the miracles and signs in Egypt and in the wilderness, that even though they had heard the words of the covenant, God had not yet given them a heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear, to this very day. Pharaoh hardened his own heart to not hear the words of God, Exodus 8:32, and God responded by continuing to harden Pharaoh's heart, Exodus 9:25. Likewise, those brought from Egypt refused to hear the words of God, Exodus 20:19, and so God continued the process by further allowing the people's hearts to become hard. Paul also says in Romans 8:4-8, the righteous requirement of the law might be fulfilled in us who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. So then those who are in the flesh cannot please God. He explains that only those walking in the Spirit can help keep the righteous requirement of the law, because the law can only properly be observed through the Spirit, not the letter. Again, Ezekiel 36:26-27. The letter kills by bringing condemnation to the guilty, but the Spirit gives life by bringing grace, which enables us to try again and to be faithful and obedient. In contrast, however, those who live according to their fleshly mind cannot please God and are, in fact, enemies with Him, and are therefore not submitting to His law.